Morning everyone, hope you all are doing well. My name is Thi Nguyen. I'm one of the young leaders for prevention program, and today I would like to introduce you to an important speaker, Figen Murray. She will be talking about Martin's Law, which she has been campaigning for legislation to step up security measures in public places. And she will also share the great work that she's doing with young people about the danger of radicalization. And now I'm going to handing it over to Figen Murray.
Morning everybody, can you all hear me at the back as well? Excellent, thank you. So my name is Figen Murray and I'm here to talk about what happened to us as a family and to our lives following the Manchester Arena attack in May 2017. I suppose you all heard of that terrorist attack at some point. So Martin, who is pictured there, was 29 years old. He was my son. He was one of my 5 children, and he actually almost didn't go to the concert and last minute decided to go after all. So Martin was a PR manager. He was a PR senior manager and was enjoying life to the full, and he was absolutely fond of pop music, so he went to the concert with 10 or 12 of his friends, and luckily they all came out okay, but sadly he didn't. So Martin lived on his own in a flat, and he was living there with his cat and he had a flatmate, Hannah, and his cat, Emily Bishop, was named after a Coronation Street character. He was a massive Coronation Street super fan, and he knew everything about that program. And in fact, he knew a lot of the actors and a lot of the script writers, so much so they came to the funeral and to the vigil as well. In fact, on his coffin, we put around his coffin pictures of his favorite divas and singers, because he was very fond of middle-aged actresses and women with powerful voices. So there was Whitney Houston and Bette Midler and Gail Platt from Coronation Street. And Gail Platt was played by a lady called Helen Worth, and Helen came to the funeral, and when I realized, I actually had to pull her to one side and say, Helen, please don't be shocked, but your picture, your face is on the coffin. So I had to prepare her for that. She took it in good humour, thankfully. So Emily Bishop, his cat, she was only about 2.5 years old. And very sadly, about 3 weeks after Martin died, she just didn't wake up one morning. So I have now at home a beautiful ivory urn with Martin's ashes, and next to it is a tiny, the microphone isn't great, is it? So a tiny urn with a paw print on top. So they're kind of together again, which gives me great comfort as his mum. But Martin was of course not the only person who died in that terrible attack. There were 21 other people. The youngest one was 8-year-old Safi Roussos. Other people who died were 13, 14, 15-year-old youngsters, 17, 18-year-old youngsters, but also mums and dads. I know of at least 2 families where both sets of parents died, but both parents died because they were waiting for their children. And sadly, they were in the foyer where the attack happened, so there are young people who lost their parents at the attack as well. So the night it happened, until Martin died, I was a psychotherapist, a life coach and a clinical supervisor running my own private practice quite happily, working away in my basement, and that day my work stopped. I can't unfortunately go back to that job. So the night it happened, I had gone to bed early because I was feeling a bit off colour, so I went to bed at 10. And at about the attack happened at 22:31, and about 10 minutes later, one of my daughters came in my room and messed with my phone, and I said, "What are you doing?" By that time I was wide awake, because I'm a light sleeper, and she said, "I'm just checking if Martin texted you." And I said, "Why would he text me? Isn't he at home in his flat?" And she said, "No, he's gone to a concert," which I didn't even know. In fact, I didn't know who Ariana Grande was even. And naively, I didn't know that a concert, a pop concert, happens on a Monday night, school night. How ridiculous, but there you go. That was my naivety. So she said, "Mum, there's been an incident and his friends keep texting me, and I'm just checking if he's texted you." And I said, "Incidents, what do you mean?" And she said, she was really reluctant to tell me. She said, "Mum, there's been an explosion." So she hadn't finished the word. I ran past her down the stairs, and my husband was just in the lounge watching the news flash. I mean, I think you might have seen it with people screaming and running, and I said, "Martin's there with his mates, and he's not come out." They have, but he hasn't. I hope he's okay. And my husband said, "Figen, that place holds 20,000 people. You know what he's like. He'll be in the gay village ordering drinks, and he always leaves concerts early," which was actually true, but he didn't leave early that night. It's just one of those things. So my husband is a GP. He said, "Well, look, he'll ring you tomorrow morning and you'll laugh about it. I'm going to bed, I have work tomorrow." So off he went. So I stayed up with my daughter, talking to his mates, because they were frantically, by then, looking around the hospitals looking for him. And they were beside themselves with worry and crying and really upset. But we watched the news as well. And so the attack happened 22:31. Probably about 23:17, I turned round to Louise and I said, "You know what? He's dead." And she said, "Mum, don't say that. Why would you say that?" And I said, "I literally cannot feel him anymore. It's as if somebody's taken some scissors and cut off the connection. I'm telling you, he's gone." And very, very sadly, 24 hours later, we had it officially confirmed that Martin was one of the 22 people who died. So I had 2 very difficult days apart from the day he died. As a family, we all had that, actually, not just me. But as a mum, it's quite a different thing to go to a morgue, not to identify your son, because I knew he was dead, but to see your dead child. It's the wrong way around. You're not supposed to do that as a parent. So to go in and driving with my husband to the morgue, I didn't know what to expect. You've all seen pictures of freezers in morgues with a metal table with a dead body and covered in white sheets, and then somebody in there lifts the head bit and you say yay or nay. And that's what my expectation was. But when we got to the morgue, it was actually not like that. They had actually set up a private hospital room almost, and that's how it looked, with a bed, with Martin in the bed, cleaned up, bandaged up, lying on a pillow covered with a quilt. And although it was really comforting to see him like that, rather than on a metal slab, it really messed with my head because he looked asleep. And it was only when I leant over and kissed him that I felt his ice-cold body, and that actually was the moment it sunk in that he was dead. The second hardest day was the week after the morgue visit, the 2 weeks after the attack, when the police said, "You can go to the arena, to the exact spot where Martin died." And that is the picture that the police kindly gave me for my presentations. So they lit a candle. They had 22 red roses all over the foyer floor at the exact spot where somebody died, and they said, "Go to the rose with the candle, that's Martin's rose." So that's what we did, and that was exactly the spot where he took his last breath. And again, those 2 days, the morgue visit and the visit to the arena, they are actually forever etched in my DNA. I will never ever forget them, and I can tell minute by minute what happened on those 2 days. But why am I here? I'm not just here to tell you a sad story. I have decided very early on, when 3 days after the attack, because we didn't have the news on or the TV on or anything, but 3 days after the attack, we had somebody bought the newspapers and kept putting them on the dining room table. So there was the top newspaper had the picture of the terrorist who did the attack on the front page, and I thought, oh, I can't believe how young this guy is. And he looked literally your age, he honestly did. And that made me think, when I'm better, at some point in the future, I've got to speak to young people, because he wasn't born a terrorist. Something happened to him to make him a bad person. He wasn't bad when he was a young baby. So that's why I felt very strongly about the dangers of online radicalization. And I have also since then, because I was so naive, I always thought terrorist attacks don't happen in the UK to normal people like me and you. They only happen in London and in Paris and in America with the school shootings. How wrong was I? We suddenly became the news. So I was then so curious. I needed to understand why terrorism is such a thing, how it happens, why it happens, when it started, what's being done about it, who's doing something about it, what do people know about it. I had all these questions. So I, at the age of 58 and a half, I enrolled at uni and did a master's in counter-terrorism, which I finished in September, and for some reason I got a distinction, don't know how, but anyway. So, and I'm throwing that in not to brag, but I was doing the master's at the same time as for the past 2 years attending the Manchester Arena inquiry all day, every day, for well, 4 days a week, and I did the master's alongside it. So, however, I'm a lot wiser now since then. So, there's the picture of the globe with hands, and literally you are, how many of you are over 18? Quite a few of you. Right, so you're, a lot of you are already legally adults, but you're all, everybody in this room is on the cusp of adulthood. So you're going to be future lawmakers, decision makers, policy makers, educators, whatever jobs you go into, but most importantly, most of you will become parents at some point. And that's why I feel that in order, I mean, we grown-ups, we have, and any grown-up in here disagree with me if you like, but we grown-ups have made an absolute mess of this world. Politics-wise, environmentally, everything is just so messy at the moment. But you young people, you have fresh minds, you have the opportunity to change all that. But also, I want you to be able to pass on to your future children and future generations values such as tolerance, kindness, compassion, global compassion, not just the UK, global compassion, empathy, all those values we seem to have lost along the way. And tolerance is a really important one. I don't want you to fear otherness. I don't want you to fear difference. I want you to see it as an enrichment to your own lives. Ask about other cultures. Ask about what do you do for tea? How do you celebrate Christmas? How do you celebrate Eid or whatever else there is in all the different cultures and religions? So be curious. Don't be scared. Kindness. Now, even before Martin died, I've always tried to do one act of kindness a day, whether that is putting a shopping trolley back to the supermarket, letting somebody in the traffic, not standing on an ant I nearly stood on. It doesn't matter however small it is, but I try to cultivate that on a daily basis. And I literally say to myself, I've ticked that box today. And empathy is, again, you know, when you hear the news and you see what's happening in other places. I mean, people always get upset when there's a terrorist attack in the UK. Well, I get upset when a terrorist attack happens in the Middle East or in America, a school shooting. That upsets me because I know what those families are going through and how their lives are destroyed through that one attack. So, and the online radicalization bit. So I've done a lot of work around this because, especially with the pandemic, I mean, terrorist recruiters thought it was great to have the pandemic because not only could they spread, and I mean, I'm talking about jihadist terrorism, right-wing terrorism, any extreme form of terrorism. The pandemic, with the end of world sort of almost sensation that was around, plays into both sets of ideologies because they both have that ideology end of the world thing going on. So, but they were happy about the pandemic, and they were glad that there were so many people constantly online, and they were literally fodder for them. So, but actually, online radicalization can happen. I mean, I go to year 7s, really young children as well, because they tend to target mainly year 8 and 9 children, because they are very, very susceptible. But that doesn't mean people your age can't be susceptible. So what they do is, I can't actually see the screen, sorry. So, what is online radicalization? So it's anybody who tries to persuade other people with conspiracy theories, doom and gloom kind of thinking. They are trying to manipulate people by gaining their trust. And what they do is, how many of you play computer games online? Can I have a proper show? So quite a lot of you. How many of you play online with headsets? Right. How many are playing against people you don't actually meet? It's quite a lot of you. So imagine, I mean, your age group, you may be a little more sensible, but when you are younger, imagine you are a year 8 or 9, and you play against somebody who pretends to be your age, and you don't just play games, do you? You start talking to each other, is that right? You get to know each other a little bit if you play with the same people. So, and what they do is they try to find a chink in your armor, whether that's problems at home, whether you're bullied by colleagues here in college, whether you have issues such as if you're susceptible, or you have autism of some kind that makes you more susceptible. If there's any problems with bullying or self-esteem issues, any chink in your armor they will find, and they'll get friendly with you, and they'll eventually try to get you on a different platform, and this is how it can slowly happen. So, who's at risk? As I said, anybody can be at risk. Darren Osborne, at the age of 50-something, was at risk. He knew nothing about terrorism, but he was watching online where the 3 Bethnal Green girls were filmed at the airport in Istanbul, 2-3 weeks after the arena attack. 2 weeks after the arena attack, he saw them. He was upset about the arena attack, and he then went online, started chatting to people, and literally 3 weeks after, just under 3 weeks after, he went to Finsbury Mosque in London and tried to kill Muslims, and managed to kill 1 person, but he's now in prison for a long, long time. But he knew nothing about terrorism. That literally happened in less than 3 weeks. He got radicalized to the point where he hired a man and wanted to kill people. So all these things, recruiters are on many platforms. So they are on Snapchat, on Instagram, they are literally on Twitter, TikTok, you name it, they're on it. And it isn't always obvious. It's not just gaming platforms. What they tend to do is they try to talk about fashion, they'll talk about football on any of these platforms. They'll talk about lifestyle, anything to get a conversation going. And the conversation will then get more and more deep, and then eventually turn a little bit sinister. And then when it's the point of getting you onto a less visible platform that they encourage you to go on, that's when the proper radicalization happens. How quickly do you think somebody can get radicalized? Any idea? 10 minutes? No, not that fast. But 10 days, 10 to 12 days is not unusual, which is quite astonishing really, from 0. So how do you know when somebody gets radicalized? So behavior changes, so suddenly a person can be more withdrawn, or the opposite, aggressive when they're not normally aggressive. They can become introverted, they can change their belief structure, they can suddenly talk about politics when they never talked about it. Sometimes it can sound as if they're reading from a script, sometimes they have weird travel patterns, or they make different plans. They may suddenly have friends, you have no idea who they are, they mix with different people. there's a lot of anger about sometimes, there's a lot of secretiveness, particularly around the internet use, and and the disrespectful attitude towards adults or other people. And I don't know if that's going to work, probably not. So there's a video, oh yeah, it does work. So I'm showing you a video now, 1.5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Morning, mate. It's me. How you doing?
Yeah. I'm okay.
How you feeling about tomorrow?
Yeah, fine.
Come on. Remember who you are. You're not a loser anymore.
Who even are you?
You're a total loser.
Everyone doubted you. You should be so proud with how far you've come. This is your moment, mate.
His behaviour's not acceptable in class. What's going on?
We're here for you. We're your real family, yeah?
You listen to me. I can really talk to you guys.
You spend too much time on that screen.
Don't you walk away from me.
You guys have got me here. Everyone else have just let me down.
Because you're one of us. We really believe in you, mate.
Thank you.
Be strong. Remember everything we've been through and taught you. We make us proud tomorrow, right? So are you ready?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do this.
Okay. Right, so if anybody thinks they might themselves be in danger of being radicalized, or you know somebody who might be, you can actually get support. And one thing in particular that's really good is the Act Early website. I put here up, it's meant to be an app, but I can't find it sometimes. So it's best to go on the website, and there's loads of information on there. The NSPCC is obviously for younger secondary school children, not for you. And here are my contact details. If anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, I'm very active on there. And the reason why I'm active is Martin's Law. So I'll tell you a bit about Martin's Law. So about